Welcome to Bike Walk Connecticut, and this is our very first edition here in the beautiful brand new studio of Simsbury Community Media, Simsbury Media Television, right? So most of us know it as Simsbury Community Television, but it's now Simsbury Media. So Bike Walk Connecticut is a show that's going to be about what you might have guessed, bicycling, walking. We'll get some running shots in there. Many issues within Connecticut, basically called active transportation. As many of you know, I am a car dealer and guilty as charged. Stephen Mitchell, Mitchell Auto Group. However, I'm also, for many, many years, have been a huge supporter of the Greenway efforts, the East Coast Greenway. I was on the board of directors for 8 years, and now recently on the board of Bike Walk Connecticut. And this show coming to you hopefully 6-7 times a year, we will be talking about issues that are important to you, issues that are important to Connecticut, making bicycling, walking, running safer in the state of Connecticut. Bike Walk Connecticut is changing the culture of transportation through advocacy and education to make bicycling and walking safe, feasible, and attractive for a healthier, cleaner Connecticut for everyone. So with that, there's a lot of items that we need to talk about. We need to talk about infrastructure. We need to talk about changing laws. We need to talk about changing behavior. When I go back to my childhood and things that I didn't even know that were going on as growing up in the late 50s and 1960s, I didn't realize that the Department of Transportation, and this is true with Connecticut, this is true with probably most of the United States, that it was very car-centric, that departments of transportation were making interstates and infrastructure in the United States geared for cars and trucks. The regard towards pedestrian and cycling traffic, absolutely no regard. A great example of that, of what I'm talking about, is Route 44 right in Avon. When I grew up, Route 44 was a 2-lane road with a nice wide shoulder. Someone at DOT said, that needs to be a 4-lane road. And so they literally made Route 44 into a 4-lane road with about that much, that's about an inch or two, of allowance for biking or walking. Absolutely no regard for safety for biking and walking, as you can witness today along Route 44. So departments of transportation are changing. There's now something called complete streets. And again, during our shows, we will have a number of guests. If you'd like to come on and talk about what you're interested in, please feel free to call me or email me right here at Simsbury Community Media. And we're glad to answer your questions or have you on possibly as a guest. A lot of times I work with Bruce Donald, who is, I call him our Greenway czar for the state of Connecticut. He's on just about every committee and commission. And speaking of which, Bruce is the tri-state coordinator for the East Coast Greenway. Bruce Donald is in charge of Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts from Worcester to the Rhode Island border, I believe is his district. And I'm going to have him on one of our shows, and he's going to talk all about the different sections of Connecticut and what's getting done. Most importantly, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Ride the State, but that section where we do Ride the State goes from New Haven to Simsbury, and then it's going to go off, the East Coast Greenway is going to go off through Terriffill, into Windsor, Bloomfield, and on into Hartford, and then Manchester, and then out to Bolton, and on to Eastern Connecticut, Rhode Island. Specifically, we are so close to finishing New Haven to Hartford. It's exciting. It's about 85% finished right now. The Department of Transportation has basically cut up the Plainville to Southington Gap in 3 sections, 3 separate different projects, which should be done in the next 3 years. There's one little issue dealing with yard metals, and we hope to resolve that in the next couple of months. But what's exciting, early this month, November, was the Department of Transportation started doing the connection from Terriffill to Bloomfield. That's actually going on right now. They've cut all the trees along 189. What's going to be very interesting, keep in touch with this program, because we'll be telling you how exactly they're going to get from the Griffin line in Bloomfield to Hartford. So that's about a 9-mile stretch. That's not totally defined yet. So now I'd like to talk about Ride the State before we get to the main part of this show, which is Cary, North Carolina. But Ride the State is something that we started back in 2013 with then Commissioner Dan Esty. And Ride the State is something that we do every year. It's the weekend after Father's Day, the Saturday after Father's Day. It has become a wonderful event. We even actually held it through COVID. Kind of interesting how we did that. But anyway, so this past year, 2022, we had the best turnout we've ever had. We had over 150 people signed up. We get a beautiful bus from DATCO. We use the bus to get people back from, so if we're going to ride from New Haven to Southwick, Massachusetts, how do we get back to New Haven? So we take this beautiful double-decker bus that DATCO dressed up with the state of Connecticut, the tourism website brochure. So the ride starts in New Haven. We always start about 8:15 in the morning, and it's a 57-mile bike. It's a 57-mile ride, and we do it at what I call old guy pace. I'm the old guy, and we usually do it about 12, 13 miles an hour is what we shoot for. We get to the bus usually at Southwick between 2 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we just take a nice leisurely ride back on the bus to New Haven. The coolest thing about that ride is you get to see Connecticut history. It's just amazing to go from the green in New Haven, and then before you know it, a few minutes later, you're riding through the campus of Yale University. It's absolutely spectacular, and that's where you connect onto the trail, and you go through the northern part of New Haven, and you get to Hamden. And when you're going through Hamden, it's kind of an urban center, if you will, and then you're pretty much getting out into the country by the time you get to Cheshire. And when you're going along the trail in Cheshire, you're actually seeing the canal on your left. It's just so cool to be riding on this trail that was once a railroad bed and seeing where the canal, pieces of the canal were. The canal was built in the 1820s. So you're really literally riding your bike through 200 years of Connecticut history. And the most amazing thing to me is to see where the parts of the canal go through Hamden and Cheshire up through Southington, and you get to see how the heck did they build the railroad back in the 1800s, 1850s, I believe, 1850s, 1860s, and they didn't have caterpillars. They did not have the technology. They did not have the equipment that they have today, for sure. And it's just kind of a neat ride, great ride with a lot of camaraderie. a lot of talking. There's nobody, there's no race, there's no prizes for who gets to lunch first. And usually we have lunch in Avon or Simsbury. Last year, Whole Foods, a little shout out to Whole Foods. They provided lunch for everybody. So that was wonderful right there in Avon. And so it was a wonderful ride. Try it next year. It'll be, again, the Saturday after Father's Day for 2023. So hope you can join us. Now, I'd really like to set up the next part of our show today, and that is probably a town you've never heard of. It's called Cary, North Carolina. The mayor of Durham, one time I was standing next to the mayor of Durham during one of these speeches we were doing, and the mayor of Durham said to me, "Do you know what Cary stands for, don't you?" And I said, "No, Mayor, what does Cary stand for?" And he says to me, "Cary, Concentrated Area of Retired Yankees." So I was like, okay. And it's probably true. There's probably a lot of people from the Northeast that have settled down in the Triangle area. And it's right in between Raleigh and Durham. And it's part of the East Coast Greenway down through North Carolina. It's absolutely beautiful along the tobacco. It's called the Tobacco Trail down there. Up here, we call the East Coast Greenway the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail, which goes from New Haven to Massachusetts. I'm not sure if it continues that name up through Massachusetts or not, but around here we know it as the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail, but it's also called the East Coast Greenway. And it's a wonderful piece of history, and the connection between Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and so on and so forth, from Canada to Key West. In the Triangle area, this town called Cary has absolutely taken this whole bike walk initiative. And right now, Cary is, if you put Avon and Simsbury together in total square mileage, the population is 180,000 people. It's still a town. They don't call themselves a city. It's a town of 180,000 people with 39 greenways, 39 named greenways. It's amazing. You can get throughout the whole town of Cary, North Carolina without ever having to use a car. You can simply get to schools, you can get to shopping, businesses, homes. You can get through the whole community. It's about 58 square miles through 90 miles of greenway. And with that, and I'll pass it over to my friends down in Cary, North Carolina. Welcome to our very first version. As many of you know, I've done many videos out there. I'm Stephen Mitchell, and this is the new show called Bike Walk Connecticut, talking about bicycle and pedestrian issues all around the state of Connecticut. And, you know, we try to get ideas from successful communities. And with me today, I'm with Sandy Bailey, who's the transportation planner for the town of Cary, North Carolina. And welcome to our show. And tell me a little bit about yourself and what your role here is within Cary.
Sure. Yeah, so my title is transportation planner. I've been with Cary, December will be 20 years, and I have worked with Cary's Greenway system in some capacity for the entire length of my career here in Cary. And so I still do a lot of long-range planning with the Greenways, a lot of budgeting, grant writing, did development review, because a large part of Cary's success is what we refer to as our developer built greenway program.
Yep.
And so we review development plans because they include a lot of design for new greenways, and so reviewed those for many years, have purchased greenway easements in the past.
Yeah.
So just, lots of greenways work. Other transportation projects as well.
So do a little bragging, if you will, because Cary is a same size as if you put Simsbury and Avon put together, about 58 square miles.
That's right.
And the population of Simsbury and Avon put together is probably about 50,000. And your population here now is?
About 180,000.
About 180,000 people.
Yes.
And there's no high rises in Cary.
No.
Wait, there's got to be zoning. What, is it 4-story?
Well, I don't know what the limits are. It may not always be the case.
But there's no high rises
right now. We have
yeah.
about 4 stories downtown.
Yeah, that's it. So the population density is incredible, but the transportation system in your town. Do a little bragging about your bike system, your trail system here in Cary. You've got 39 named trails, is that correct?
We do, and we'll be streamlining our naming convention. With our upcoming master plan updates.
Okay.
We don't usually refer to segments because that can mean different things to different people.
Okay.
But we have around 90 miles of trail on the ground.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah.
So greenways are expensive, $1.6 million a mile, depending on where you're building, but that's kind of an average. Do you find people within the community are supportive of these meetings, or do you have naysayers down here watching the budget saying we don't need another greenway here, or what's the general consensus of your population in terms of greenways?
Well, today, Cary citizens are in love with the greenways.
Yeah.
And by far we get more compliments and requests for more greenways and
Really?
more connections,
Okay.
than naysayers.
Yeah.
There may be some hesitancy if we are retrofitting a greenway into a neighborhood where we don't already have easement. Folks who are, having a greenway in your backyard, can cause a little anxiety. But we found that once they're on the ground, people love them.
Yeah.
And in fact, when we did our last master plan update, we did a big survey, and one of the top requested facilities, or the top requested facility, were greenways, as opposed to even parks. And so
Really?
they're really, really important to Cary citizens.
Okay. So what do you say to the people who don't want this? I mean, the validity of more crime and trash and other negative things. What would you say to those people? We try to address the trash issue. I don't know that it's ever really been an issue here. Yeah.
But we do have amenities along the greenways that we try to provide, and at certain intervals and things, with trash bins and benches and things like that. And Cary citizens are pretty good about taking care of the facilities.
Yep.
And in terms of crime, we don't have a lot of that.
Yep.
I've spoken with our police department on numerous occasions, just checking in, and still, we just don't have a lot of it.
Right.
And what they have told me is that crime on greenways kind of follows crime in the general community.
Right.
So if there's a crime issue in the community, then of course that it's likely, that it could spill over into any, of your areas. But
are there any negatives to the bike trails? I mean, I don't want to paint this is all wonderful and good. What do you have any? Are there any?
I wouldn't call them negatives, but it truly is an investment in
Yep.
infrastructure for the community.
Yep.
And it depends on how you build the greenways. And in Cary, when we say greenway, we're primarily referring to paved trails.
Correct.
And paved for a number of reasons, just because we reach a broader number of users groups that
Yep.
way. And they can be more expensive, obviously, to put in, but the benefit outweighs the cost, or at least our citizens in our
Right.
council have felt that way.
So, and obviously we talked about the East Coast Greenway a little bit, and it comes 200 miles of the East Coast Greenway is going to come through Connecticut. And it's wonderful. These greenways come into town. There's some controversy. They get built, and everybody loves them. And the town's supposed to maintain them. How does that relate to here in Cary? Do you have its own trail maintenance, or is it Public Works, or
Yes.
how does that work?
Definitely, that's something that we budget for because we've got this great system that the community loves, and we definitely want to maintain it.
Okay.
And so, with our trails, the way that they're constructed, we budget for repaving and renovation every 20 years, and
Every
then
20
we
years. Okay.
do spot.
You don't have as
work.
much frost down here as we have in
Well,
Connecticut.
that's true.
so.
That's true. And then we do spot repaving, around the 10-year mark as needed.
Okay.
And then we have weekly trash and mowing in the summer, and then in the winter that
Are there
stuff
like
that.
Good Samaritan groups that go out there and do light trail maintenance type things? Is that?
Yeah, we do have.
local groups
We
down here?
have an Adopt a Trail
Oh, you do.
program.
Okay. Yep.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, where folks,
And that's administered through the town or through a private entity, or how?
it's
who's that?
through the town.
Okay.
Our Parks and Recreation Department
Okay.
oversees that program. Yeah.
Okay. And then one thing, and I've come to Cary probably 5 times at least that I've ridden through here, and I'm just always amazed at the connectivity. I'm usually on the East Coast Greenway, but there's so many connections to it. And are you still, I know you're a bike-friendly community, but officially a bike-friendly community. Are you still bronze?
I think we are bronze or silver. I'll have to
Check
I'll
on
have to
that.
check
but
on that. But
because
yes, we're
I'm-
still in there. We're not gold, but we're bronze or silver.
I've been to Davis, California.
Yes.
I've been to the Promised Land, and it is wild. There's the greenways out there are so heavily used that there's actually roundabouts
Oh,
throughout the
wow,
college.
yes.
The UC
That's
Davis.
awesome.
It's California,
Right.
but it's
Put that on my
so
list.
yeah. I'm surprised that you're only bronze or silver. You should,
Yeah.
in my opinion, you should be gold. Niles said some of the stuff perhaps pertaining that might be the roads, and you've got some busy roads. I mean, you got 180,000 people here.
Right.
What did you see during COVID in terms of trail usage, or how did you guys
Wow.
handle that down here?
Yeah. So, the COVID period really solidified how much of an asset the greenways are to the community. I mean, it was such, we saw such an increase. We do have some counters out on our trails, and one of our more popular, longer trail segments saw a 400% increase in use
400%.
during the COVID period. And I would venture to say that was the case on our greenways, all across Cary. And so it really contributed to the resilience of the community.
Yeah.
Because you can't go anywhere, and get out and see people
Right.
like we're all accustomed to.
Right.
And this was the outlet, for the community. You
Right.
get out on the greenways, you can bike and walk, you can
Right.
still see people interact to some degree. So it was really, really told a story for us.
Do you have a feeling for how many kids use the trail system to ride to schools? Am I going to go by an elementary school here and see 2 or 3 bikes? Am I going to see 20, 30 bikes? Or
Right.
how does
Right.
that use and relate
I
to?
think it varies
Okay.
from school to school and how the school views walking and biking.
Okay.
And there are different, I think, the school system is encouraging, and the principals, depending on the scenario and where they're located, it's a little bit different for each school. But we do try to, prioritize connections to schools and around schools.
Yeah.
I know that we have a Greenway committee, a citizen Greenway committee
Okay.
that meets monthly, and for years they did manual counts on the greenways.
Okay. Yeah.
And now we're shifting more towards using counters on the greenways,
Yeah.
even streetlight data, which is cellular data. But their counts alone indicated that we have over 1 million greenway users annually.
Wow.
And that's an old number. So I'm hoping in the coming months that
Yeah.
we can just reaffirm that.
The last question, and it just was fascinating because I was doing my little Google search on Cary, North Carolina connectivity, and I'm thinking about bike trails and walking trails, and I got served up a Salesforce video, and I'm like, okay, my son has worked for Salesforce for 10 years now.
Yes.
He was out in San Francisco. He's now in Boston. But what is the connection to your residents and how did Cary, the municipality, get involved with Salesforce? How did that happen?
I think that can be attributed to our town manager, Sean
Okay.
Stegall.
Okay.
He was in Elgin, Illinois before he came to Cary,
Okay.
and they relied heavily on Salesforce use there, and so he kind of put that into place immediately for us upon getting here, and so it's really getting integrated.
So how long ago was that?
Town. Oh, Sean has been here 5 years, 5 or
Okay.
6 years.
Okay.
I think. But yeah, we have a 311 system, and so citizens can call in and report a maintenance issue on a greenway via our 311 system. Our greenway committee uses it, and so it really helps us kind of keep a handle on.
So
keep these
311,
good working order.
they dial into that or
Mhm.
text? Is that
Both.
okay? Okay.
Yeah, you can dial in. You can get on it. Get to 311 online.
And that connects you to whatever department.
Yes, we
it
have
affects.
staff for the 311 center,
Okay.
and they take calls, incoming
Yep.
messages, and if they can't answer the question, they'll distribute it to the right department. They'll report maintenance issues and take care
Yeah.
of things
No.
like that. So,
Again, it was just like
yeah.
like I didn't see that coming.
Yes, yeah.
But,
so it's awesome.
No. It thank you so much
Yes.
for spending time with me today and
Yeah.
talking about the greenways and Cary but I think the more connected the communities, whether it's through technology, through
Yeah.
trails, your growth in the past 40, 50 years has been tremendous.
Yeah, and
So
I'd just like to share a little bit about that.
go ahead.
So Cary started its Greenway plan. We have one of our early stories is that there was a then Cary citizen, Linda Sutliff, who saw the Cary track team running on the shoulders of Kildare Farm Road, which today is like a 4 to 5 lane major roadway in Cary. Back then it was just 2 lanes, but even then she was like, this is not a safe condition, and went to her council member and requested that we provide some alternative for them to safely do their practice and things, and from there
Did that result in the first greenway getting built, or what happened?
so that was early 70s, and then
Early 70s, okay.
I think it was 1976 that the Cary Town Council at that time first created a Greenway Commission.
Yep.
And they were appointed citizens, and they were tasked with working with staff to come up with a Greenway plan. And so
But that was greenways before there was even a name. They probably called it the bike trail thing back then.
Right.
Somebody had to go to Europe or something. What is the backstory there?
Well,
somebody had to have that vision for greenways.
Well, Miss Sutliff,
Okay.
and we interviewed her in 2019 because it was our first Greenway was built in 1979. And so
Okay.
we celebrated our 40th anniversary and interviewed her, and for historical purposes. And she said that she had lived in Chapel Hill, UNC Chapel Hill, and had seen they had trails going all over campus at the time.
Right.
And so when she saw the track team running on the side of the road, went to the council member and said, can't we implement something like this? And I think it was the same time that Raleigh was kind of kicking off the idea for its capital area greenway system. So there may have been a movement brewing at that
a little
time.
bit of competition
in the 70s,
or something.
right?
Fascinating.
First greenway in 1979, and we've grown to 90 miles, and it's so if you do the numbers, that's an average of about 2 miles per year.
Yep.
And it's I think it was a little slower to get started, and then we really grew a lot in the early 2000s because we embraced what we now call our developer built greenway program. We've always had a strong land development ordinance, wherein Cary was able to get greenway easements dedicated with new developments as they happened,
Right.
based on this master plan.
Right.
In the early 2000s, we went a step further and started working with the developers to actually build the greenways
Yeah.
as they were developing their
Yeah.
subdivisions.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Yes.
It's amazing. Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
that really helped us to get more miles on the ground faster than we would otherwise have been able to do. I mean, just in terms of having the staff to oversee those projects. So the developers, they design them, we review the plans.
Yeah.
They go out and build them with their subdivision, and then our inspectors go out and inspect those just like they do any other infrastructure,
Sure, right,
utilities,
right.
roads.
Yeah,
things
no,
like
one
that.
time I was riding on the Greenway, brand new development, and I
Yeah.
could tell the real estate agent was talking to prospective buyers.
Mhm.
He was standing on the little easement from the Greenway, from the tobacco trail
Yes.
to the new neighborhood, and I could tell he was pointing at the East
Yes.
Coast Greenway and the this could be your home site, you know,
Right.
type of thing. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely it's part of the fabric of the community.
Yes.
It's beautiful here, and I would just want to say thank you so much
Yes, thank you.
for talking with me today and taking the time out. And let's build some more greenways back in Connecticut, okay? So thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.